Hey y'all, welcome to First and 10 on the DawgsHQ YouTube channel. We're just catching you up to speed on some of the news, some of the notes that you may have missed from the past day or so. I'm Wes Blankenship. I've got Jake Rowe, Jake Roos, and Palmer Toms, all irreplaceable members of the DawgsHQ team with us this what is it, Thursday, January 5th. Jake Rowe, we'll start with you. You got a few updates on the Georgia Bulldogs injury status. What do you have?
Yeah, thanks, Wes. Georgia's injury situation. Okay, here's where we're at. Chaz Chambliss would probably list him as probable right now, as redundant as that sounds. He's got a hyperextended knee. I think he's got a very good chance to play against TCU in this national championship game. Georgia needs first and second down snaps out of him because they want to bring in Marvin Jones Jr. and Jalen Walker on third down where they can be fresh and they can kind of wind them up, turn them loose, let them go. Darnell Washington, I still think that one's a little bit more questionable. We've got some news coming in here tonight. It was at the basketball game, was kind of moving around. Palmer Toms, who you will see in just a few seconds here, reported that to us over at DawgsHQ. And so there's a chance, not feeling super great about it yet, but we'll see what happens whenever they get to LA, which will be on Friday. All right, now here we're looking at Lab McConkey, good to go, just like last week. Probably going to be a little bit limited, probably going to hurt a little bit, but he's going to give it a go in the national championship. I don't think you can keep him out if you wanted him to, and I do believe Warren McClendon will also be available for this game. From what I understand, he was available to play last week. He worked with the second-team offensive line. That's a really good sign because it really puts a lot of room between Georgia and disaster at the offensive tackle position. Warren McClendon can play both of them. And as we learned last year, sometimes in that national championship game, you've got to move some things around to get a win. Broderick Jones came in at left tackle. Jamari Sawyer moved down to right guard, and they pulled Warren Erickson out of the game. Last thing I want to note here, Kendre Miller, running back, TCU, very big story there. From what I'm understanding here, and I'm talking to some people on the Georgia side of things, they expect him to play. They are preparing as if he is going to play. I don't think I would expect anything different, but I think he's going to give it a shot in this one. It's just going to be a matter of how effective he's going to be. It's hard to imagine he wasn't able to finish last week's game. He's going to be effective in this one. Next up, Jake Roos. What you got, bud?
Hey, listen. Big news there on the injury fronts for sure, Roe. I'm talking about what's going on in the future, as is always the case with recruiting. And it's big stuff for the Georgia Bulldogs. As you know, it's all-star season, and the Georgia Bulldogs have a number of guys out there getting reps in some of the biggest games in the country. The Under Armour game just wrapped up, and we're in the throes of the Adidas All-American game, which is taking place out in San Antonio. I encourage people to tune into that game. As I hope they did for the Under Armour game as well. But Georgia commits and signees making big noise in both of those games. Raylan Wilson came out of the gate in Under Armour, really impressing people, blowing people away, not only with his size and the physical attributes that he brings to the field, something that we've heard a lot about throughout his career, but also with his speed and his ability to make plays from that linebacker position. He's a guy that gets all over the field, plays sideline to sideline. And that's something we've heard a lot about from Georgia linebackers over the course of the last couple of years in terms of recruiting. Keep eyes on Raylan Wilson moving forward. Definitely going to be a key piece, I think, in the middle. Out in San Antonio, turning our focus out now to Texas, you're talking about a couple of guys already making huge waves out there. Monroe Freeling, Jordan Hall, and Pierce Spurlin, all among the top performers in the East in the early goings of this thing. And I think it's important to note that all three of those guys, 4 stars, Hall and Freeling, right on the cusp of their 5th star when it comes to the on-3 rankings. I think both guys have a chance to challenge for it. Monroe Freeling impressing people not only with his size, dominant at 6'7", 295, coming in looking like a prototypical left tackle, but his bend really blowing people away as well. Think he's a guy who can slot into a potential left tackle position at Georgia and be a major impact maker for them there. On the defensive side of the ball, you flip over and talk about Jordan Hall. What a week it seems like he's having already. Named the top performer in the East on Wednesday, and a guy who Georgia fought hard for, didn't have a lot of doubts about, but it's clear why the focus was there. You're seeing it play out in All-Star Week. great pursuit from this guy, a guy who's able to get after the quarterback from the interior and able to affect the passer. Georgia needs that. I think we saw that against Ohio State. Jordan Hall could be one of those guys in the future. So listen, future's bright in Athens. That's what great recruiting buys you. That's what you have to expect moving forward. Georgia commits making huge waves in these all-star games. We'll definitely keep you tuned in over at DawgsHQ. So keep following along for all the latest over there. But let's turn it over to the hardwood and my man Palmer Tiles. Palmer, what do you got?
Thanks, Roos. And like Ro told you, I'm here at Stegman Coliseum, where Georgia basketball picked up their first win of SEC play in the SEC opener, 76-64 win over rival ranked Auburn Tigers, coming in at number 20 in the coaches poll, number 22 in the AP poll. Georgia knocks them off with a stellar showing from a couple of transfers. Terry Roberts had a big night, 26 points, a season high, and which ties a career high for him that he set last year at Bradley. He was pouring them in. M.A. Moncrief, an Oklahoma State transfer, led Georgia in rebounding with 9 boards. That was a big matchup tonight against a very large Auburn team. Kerry Oquendo, who most Georgia fans may remember from last year, Georgia's returning leading scorer, had 17 points, including 3 3-pointers on 5 attempts for him. Mike White's first SEC win at Georgia. Obviously, he picked up several of those at Florida, where Georgia will be headed this weekend. But the first SEC win at Georgia, a ranked win at Georgia, certainly has things going in the right direction for the hoops on the hardwood. Wes, I'll let you wrap it up.
All right, thanks, fellas. So I mentioned that this is kind of a summary recap of things that have already happened over the past day, maybe the past couple days, but I want to highlight something that I thought was really neat, and it is Georgia's decision and Delta's decision to honor Vince Dooley as the Dogs fly out to LA with a pretty sweet wrap of their jet. And they've got the old school Bulldog logo, which I really like, and Vince Dooley's signature. And it says honoring the legendary Vince Dooley. We have a story up on DawgsHQ.com with a tweet from a user at VNYL of the day, who was at this ceremony that showed what it's all about and showed what the jet looks like. And I think that's got to be a great omen. And I'm thrilled to see it. And it's just another way to honor the late coach, who obviously left us this season. And as the season has continued and progressed, I know it's been easy to kind of let all the in memoriam stuff, the legacy stuff, all those things that we said about coach kind of fall by the wayside, and maybe look back on it a little bit more fondly, with a little bit more detail in the off season. But with one more game to go for the Dogs, I really enjoyed this tribute. And of course, Delta is a huge sponsor of the Dogs, so that makes sense that they would do that. One more thing I want to encourage y'all to check out is the Georgia show, which we wrapped up last night. Palmer was at the basketball game, so he was working and wasn't able to join the Jakes and myself. But we talked about a few things. We talked about the Georgia injury situation, which Jake just mentioned here on this conversation. But we also talked about what TCU is bringing to the table. The Peach Bowl buzz is faded for the Dogs, at least. I know y'all are probably still enjoying it a lot. But it's time to turn your attention to the Horned Frogs and think about what they're bringing to this game. They're bringing a lot of experience, a lot of senior leadership. The Dogs have that too, and they have it in their quarterback, Stetson Bennett. So we talked about what Georgia's defense will do to try to contain the Horned Frogs and Heisman finalist Max Duggan and Sonny Dykes' offense, but also about how Stetson Bennett's legacy could be impacted by this game. We shared our opinions on that and what it may mean, whether or not Georgia wins this game. I apparently am the only one who has some concerns about it. Everyone else seems to feel very confident about it. So y'all check out our thoughts on the Georgia show. If you don't have time to sit in front of your screen and watch it all on YouTube, we also have links on Apple and Spotify so you can hear everything we had to say about the upcoming national championship game the Dogs have a shot to go back to back. Y'all have a great day. This has been First and 10. We will see you next time.